Welcome, everyone. This is the LACNETS meeting in November, and we are celebrating Net Cancer Day. We're ahead of actual Net Cancer Day, which is a global celebration on November 10th every year. So people around the world are celebrating Neuroendocrine Cancer Net Cancer Day. And we're very happy to be here in Beverly Hills at Tower Cancer Research Foundation. Let's give them a big thanks for having us here today. It's a gorgeous day in Los Angeles, and the space is absolutely amazing, and we're so happy and thankful to Tower Cancer Research Foundation for hosting us today, as they did last November for Net Cancer Day. We have a very special presentation today and conversation, but first I want to make some announcements that are more general announcements. One is that Novartis has, every year they give out the Monica Warner Award, and last year I was very proud to be the recipient of that. The nominations are now open, actually starting today through December 6th. And this is an award that Novartis gives to somebody who's been an advocate in the community and outspoken and helping to create education and awareness. The list of recipients has been really amazing. And then that person gets to donate $10,000 to the nonprofit of their choice. So that is something that Novartis has funded for many years. And if you have people that you would like to nominate, those nominations are open as of today. And we have a website where you can go to do that. Novartis also has a website called Carcinoid Connection, which you'll see on Facebook as well, and it's called their Net Fusion program. That's going to be, there's an animated character named Doris, and it's a great way to learn more about neuroendocrine and carcinoid. And then there's several events that the NorCal Carcinet group with Josh Mailman are doing. One is on November 16th, and Josh is going to be talking with the National Council on Aging to better understand Part D of Medicare. So for those of us on Medicare, Part D is the prescription benefits part. And as difficult as it is to know what drugs you might be on and try to anticipate that, it can be a very important decision. Some of the drugs that NET patients take, like Afinitor, Sutent, and Zermelo, can cost up to $200,000 a year. So this is a really important choice to make sure that you're going to be covered in the best way. That's on November 16th. It's a webinar from 1 to 2 p.m. And then on November 30th, once again, NorCal Carcinet is hosting, along with the Cancer Legal Resources Center, which is based here in Los Angeles, a webinar on individual insurance and the insurance exchanges. So there's a big open enrollment period now, so this is an important time to make those insurance decisions. And it's open to everybody in the US or globally. It's a webinar. So we'll be posting these on our LACNETS newsletter and also on social media. And one of the NorCal patients and also a board member, Laurel Zine, she wrote a book called You Have Cancer, Moving from Fear to Hope, First Steps for the Overwhelmed. Anyone been in that category? I've certainly been there. She's giving the book away free today and tomorrow only, and it's on Amazon. And this supports awareness of neuroendocrine cancer as a rare cancer. And we are hosting, every year we host an annual NET patient education conference. So we're ahead of schedule, and we actually know the date for 2018. It's going to be on May 19th, Saturday. It's a full day, so save the date in your calendar. It's going to be hosted by UCLA this year, and we're very excited. This is a great day to come out. It's a full day with many different doctors and specialists to learn more, and also to meet lots of other neuroendocrine patients. We had over 250 people there last year. And I was thinking this morning, when I was diagnosed in 2005, there were limited resources. And people who were diagnosed before that will tell you that there was nothing when they were first diagnosed. There wasn't a website. And there might not have been the web. And so I'm just amazed now at all of the resources we have available to us. There's a new website called carcinoidsyndrome.org, which is all about carcinoid syndrome, which we'll talk about in a moment. And there are so many resources now. Now the issue is, where do I go? How do I know what's reliable information? And I think, talking to other patients is one of the best sources, especially if you're considering a treatment, especially with new things that are coming now with PRRT about to be approved next year in the US. So we're very fortunate that there are so many resources now. And one of our biggest issues as humans, but also as neuroendocrine patients, is food and our digestive system. Many of us have had digestive surgery or don't have a gallbladder anymore, and have issues with enzymes and eating. So we really wanted to focus on food. And a few months ago, we put a post out there that said, "Got carcinoid syndrome," and we wanted people to weigh in on their trigger foods. And we were absolutely amazed at how much this got shared online. And carcinoid syndrome is a side effect of having this disease. We tend to have lots and lots of serotonin, and not the brain serotonin where you would think we'd be extra happy all the time. This is gut serotonin, and it's systemic serotonin, which can wreak havoc on the digestive system and cause diarrhea and flushing as the two main side effects of carcinoid syndrome. So it seems patients are always looking for help with foods, and there's certain foods that make that extra bad, and then we're trying to figure out, what do we eat? And since we eat 3 times a day or even more, this is something where we can really take action. So the idea was to have a cooking class, and I think maybe we should have just called it a food as medicine class. But I'd like to introduce our special guest today, Michael Sieverts. And so Michael is a chef. He's also a healing movement teacher. He's also a cancer survivor and a patient advocate, a big patient advocate. So Michael was diagnosed in the year 2000 with a brain tumor, also a rare disease, and a rare type of brain tumor, and has been through so many treatments and physical changes and surgery, and has changed his life and really done so many things to help. He's a Qigong teacher, and you can find him 5 days a week teaching Qigong, and these classes are open to everybody. And if you sense his peaceful nature, I think it's from all the many, many hours of Qigong. But he's focused a lot on food and how much food matters in terms of us just building our immune system and keeping healthy. So you have Michael's bio, and so I won't go through exactly all of that, but he has been
Thank you.
working, people can read about you. So welcome, Michael. We're so happy to have you with us today. And you've done lots of homework about neuroendocrine, which I thank you for, and looked at some of what has been published on this. And maybe you can just tell us a little bit about, because you've said there's actually some big comparisons between neuroendocrine and being a brain tumor survivor.
Yeah, that's true. It's true. There are some commonalities. But I've known you since 2005 because you got right in with the wellness community. And Giovanna is just extraordinary, and she is, I'm so pleased to know her, but I've reached an age where my friends who really have their act together, I've never any idea what to give them for their birthday, and I was so happy to be at your house the other day because your knives are terrible. And you have to have a good knife. So you just never know. Is your birthday today?
Thank you. Yes, it
Okay.
actually is. Thank you very much.
Okay.
A good knife from a chef, no less. Yeah.
So.
Thank you.
So yes. So brain tumors are also about 20,000 a year, and we also have a difficulty with kind of embarrassing symptoms. Our embarrassing symptom is that we have seizures. And we also, I mean, NETs patients, carcinoid NETs patients have diarrhea, which is a different kind of embarrassment. And also the surgery that I had, the craniotomy, gave me frontal ataxia, which was impacted my bladder control. So I had extremely overactive bladder, so I know what it's like to get on a plane, for instance, and when they land and say they're not ready for us at the gate, it's going to be, and then you're just panicking. What do you do? Because they won't let you go to the bathroom at that point. You're stuck with your seatbelt on. And we also take Temodar, which is temozolomide, which is a therapy for carcinoid NETs too, but the problem with Temodar is not diarrhea; it's constipation, and constipation is a big problem. So overactive bladder and constipation is a strange combination, and yet, boy, NETs. I mean, I have had some real. I've had some real difficulties with this because the truth of the matter is that NETs are really different. CNETs are different, and I'm not really sure what to say. I have taught a lot of cooking classes, and I have a certain thing I go through where I, the idea is to get people to love cooking, to love food, and I'm going to have to learn from you guys today exactly how this plays out, because we always used to do this thing. So we will talk a little bit about how to live, and then we'll write on there some what foods you can't eat, and then maybe make a glass half full list, and the flip side of that, and make the foods you can eat, and then we'll see if we can't throw something together. We used to do this in my cooking classes where I would give people ingredients and they'd break into teams, and then they'd come up with 3 pastas and 2 salads and 4 snacks or something, so they could take care of themselves. Because cooking is an amazing way to take care of yourself when you have cancer. It is anyway. But that was a situation in those classes where I was telling them what they could eat. You can have pine nuts, you can have sun-dried tomatoes, you can have fresh oregano, and you can have ground rice pasta, and you can have all these things that were on this framework that I was using, which I was taught by a brain tumor nutritionist. So it was no wheat, no dairy, no sugar, and it sounded so forbidding to people, but we actually showed them that they could have really, really great diet with all that, with what the choices that were left really left you with a great set of choices. But I don't think we can do that here. So you're going to tell me what you can eat, and then we'll figure it out. And so
that's a great segue, because we were going to say what we're going to do today is talk a bit with Michael, and then get feedback from you about which foods are trigger foods, then which foods seem to work for you well. And then we have some wonderful food and recipes that we've shared with you from our catering company. And we can talk a bit through those recipes a bit and do some cooking techniques demonstrating. And then we have some resources to share with you as well. So.
Yeah, and the last thing I want to talk about, and something I'm also not very good at, is what to do in the next month, because this is the worst time of year for good eating. So we'll get to that.
Excellent. So do we want to start by, do we have a Michael Pollan quote that we can put up on the board?
Michael Pollan, if you don't know him, is a really extraordinary journalist and professor at Cal. And so he says, at a certain point in the late middle of my life, I made the most unexpected but happy discovery that the answer to several of the questions that most occupied me was in fact one and the same. And some of the questions were personal. For example, what was the single most important thing we could do as a family to improve our health and general well-being? And so, cook. And what would be a good way to better connect with my teenage son? Cook. Other questions were slightly more political in nature. For years, I had been trying to determine, because I'm often asked, what is the most important thing an ordinary person can do to help reform the American food system to make it healthier and more sustainable? Cook. Another related question is, how do people living in a highly specialized consumer economy reduce their sense of dependence and achieve a greater degree of self-sufficiency? Same answer. And then there were more philosophical questions, ones I've been chewing on since I first started writing books. How in our everyday lives can we acquire a deeper understanding of the natural world and our species' peculiar role in it? You can always go to the woods to confront such questions, but I discovered that even more interesting answers could be simply had by going into the kitchen. So this idea that so much of what happens to us in this cancer diagnosis world is sort of out of our control. And there are two kinds of medicine. There's the medicine that's done to us and the medicine that's done by us. And we're being treated or we're acting to take care of ourselves. And I have no idea whether this is what I talk about in my classes, and I have no idea where this applies to carcinoid nets, but I'm just going to give it a go. And so, actively taking care of yourself, cooking is a huge part of it. And when I went to the farmers market yesterday, and they said, and I told farmers that I was going to give this talk, and they just started handing me food. This food was all given to me for you guys. Because there's so much caring. These farmers I have now 20+ year relationship with all of them, and they are my pharmacists. Yeah, and I have the bandwidth, I have the lifestyle where I can go to farmers markets, and I recognize that it may not be available to everyone, but start moving in that direction, where where your food comes from, and who grew it, and that it has inherent energy and so on. So,
yeah, that was something we wanted to acknowledge in the room, that with NET patients, every patient is different. It's one of the things that makes it difficult, because we can't just say, well, this works for everyone. And not only that, even for one patient, it differs from day to day. I mean, what I ate yesterday may have given me carcinoid syndrome, and then today I'll be fine, and tomorrow I don't know. So every patient is totally different, and it depends on where you are in your treatment. And if sometimes we really want to distinguish, some patients will have diarrhea, but it's because they had surgery, and now they don't have all of their plumbing anymore. So this really makes a difference. But even years after surgery, the digestive system is different every day. So we want to emphasize that some people, in what we're suggesting, some people maybe literally, I'm on the couch, I can't go anywhere today, I'm having trouble even leaving the house. Like the diarrhea is so bad that I don't have the energy and I need to be near a bathroom. So that's one end of the spectrum. And then we've got the other end of the spectrum where people may be able to say, I can go to the farmer's market today and I'll also maybe go to Whole Foods and somewhere else to get my food. This is a favorite place I have. So we just want to acknowledge there's a huge range, and one patient may be in different parts of that range within a month's time. So that's something to consider. We want to present the full bandwidth of what's available.
Yeah, and when so much of this, my Qigong practice too, it's about being completely present to what's going on with yourself in the moment. And one of the reasons we move slowly in Qigong is to sense what's happening with our own bodies and with our own minds. And so you're not worried about what happened, you're not stressing about what's going to happen, you're just being in this moment and making the moment as good as possible. And when the moments are good, you sort of make a space around that, and you expand it, and you make your life more and more relaxed and calm. And my understanding about carcinoid syndrome is that it's being tense can trigger the episodes, right?
Stress is definitely one of the triggers. Yes. And large meals. So we tend to eat smaller meals, many smaller meals. Yeah. But stress is definitely a contributor. So maybe this is a good time to ask, do we want to ask people what some of their foods are?
Right.
So for the neuroendocrine patients, what are some of them? We're welcoming Lindsay as our scribe today. What are some of the top foods that are triggers for you? And you can just yell them out. This is for the neuroendocrine patients. Anything greasy. Yeah. Because a lot of us don't have a gallbladder, so that makes it kind of hard to digest fats. Any others? Spicy food. Yes, another common one. Anyone for tomatoes? That's usually on the list. Any others? Alcohol. How is alcohol? And for me, I know caffeine is one. Sugar. Those are pretty much, that's like our top.
Okay, you finally got the one.
Foods.
Sugar was the first one I can't have.
Sugar's the first one for you. Yeah.
Sorry. In my experience is that I recovered, so this may not be your experience.
Great. So do we want to also list now, so if these foods are not good, then what are the kinds of things you've discovered do work for you, that food you can go to most of the time at least?
So this is the half full list.
This is the half full. Yes? Vegetables? Cooked vegetables? Yeah. That was one of the things we would add to that first list, raw foods. Eggs? Eggs are good. Okay.
Okay.
Protein. Okay, what are you all eating? Fruits? Uh-huh. Chicken, salmon, fish. And for those of you tuning in, we have some really delicious food here and the recipes which we're going to share with you as well. So the ingredients on those are, we have a chicken dish and a hummus and couscous with cooked vegetables. Israeli chicken and pita bread. Any other foods to add to that list? Yeah? Pasta, of course. What about breakfast? Besides eggs? Eggs every day? Oatmeal?
Legumes are okay for you?
Legumes are okay? Okay. Okay, so this is that's a pretty broad list.
Oh, this is a fine list. You can eat really well off this list. You know, one thing I would say is and Leanne Burns said this too, is, you know, eat a rainbow. So that's sort of what I was going for at the market yesterday, where, you know, you have these purple carrots and these yellow carrots and these crazy beautiful peppers,
Some of the peppers are spicy and some are
well,
not.
yeah, not
right?
none of these are spicy, and so you can roast them and pull off the peels. And is parsley okay for you guys? It's pretty mild. We're done. You can have a great life. And avocados are not so good, right? But pomegranates, persimmons, really big colors. And so what about rice? Rice is okay, but it should be white rice, right?
White rice?
I mean, I assume white rice. Yeah.
So I think for a lot of
But the fiber thing is a bothers people, right?
Brown rice.
Well, I love brown rice, but I'm not in my wheelhouse here. So
I think some carcinoid patients have issue with whole grains and might go more towards the white rice. And but for some people, if your gut is filling up to it, brown rice has more nutrition. Can you just say a little bit about that?
It's the
white rice versus brown rice.
I mean, I'm deep into this Chinese practice. And the Chinese love white rice, but it is absorbed in the body very quickly, and so it's. So for a lot of people, if they eat too much white rice, it's like eating a couple tablespoons of sugar. But I happen to love brown rice. So and I was going to say that there are all of these things that I would love people to be as do the best they can to get the best ingredients, and to recognize that there's a food system out there which is filled with ethical people who are really passionate about what they do, and they're not using hormones. It strikes me that if you have a cancer issue, eating food that was eating animals that were treated with a substance to promote growth doesn't seem like a good idea somehow. And and Michael Pollan has these wonderful rules about cooking, and one of his things is, spend a little more, but eat less, and support this alternate industry of people who really care about the planet and treat their employees well and their animals well, a good egg at the farmer's market costs 50 cents, and an egg at Trader Joe's costs 10 cents. And it's fine to do what you can, and I don't want to send you to 20 farmers markets, because that's just, if it's too exhausting, you won't do it. But there is always a cost benefit, and so I'm always in favor of doing the best you can. And if you can't get to Whole Foods, I think now you can do delivery, right? Amazon Fresh. And so one thing I was going to say is that maybe we should look at the recipes that they gave us.
And I just want to mention a lot of neuroendocrine patients are on a medication that's a somatostatin analog, an injection that we get once a month, when one of the side effects of that is high blood sugar. So we can tend towards diabetes. And so that's a consideration with eating these foods that are high glycemic, like white rice or pasta, white bread, white potatoes. So that's just something that we have to balance in terms of eating something that's going to feel soothing to our gut, but at the same time not raise our blood sugar.
And the thing that is off that list, which I miss, is oil. And so one of the ways to think about oil is, we're going to look at the recipes. So every recipe, whenever you look at it, and I look at recipes a lot because there's just so much ferment and interest in food right now. There's a lot of people talking about things. Every time I look at a recipe, and it drives my wife crazy, I will modify it before I even cook it once. And I don't do much baking. It doesn't work with baking. Baking, you have to be sort of really precise. But for instance, in this in the couscous salad recipe, where they say, saute the carrots and the parsnips, you can actually use a technique that I call sweating, and not just me, it's called sweating. And you need a pan that has a tight-fitting lid, and you chop up the vegetables, and you put them in the pan, warm it up, and when it gets hot, you splash some stock. And this is from a vendor who's at every farmer's market, a Korean vendor, and he does this veggie stock, and it is such a way to cheat. It makes everything taste so good. And you can reheat rice with it, and people will really, really like it, and just pretend that you came up with it yourself. And
so if we are not able to get to a farmer's market, what would be an equivalent like at our local
well, you like your
supermarket?
stocks. You get your frozen stocks, right? You get them at Erewhon, right?
Yeah.
But
all the bone broth.
Yeah, these bone broths, which are also filled with protein. Our protein needs are intensely elevated when we have cancer. I went through a long time of starting every day with 50 or 60 grams of protein with goat whey and soy milk and just very intense protein levels, and I've been able to back off that, but it really helps because your needs are so intense at the beginning, and so
the broth is something that everyone can find at
right.
their local market, preferably organic.
Yeah, I mean certainly
veggie broth or chicken broth,
and it comes frozen, and although you get it at the counter, right?
Yeah, there's different kinds. They'll have sometimes they have the little containers, so if you only want to open 8 ounces of it to add to something, or larger, when the boxes like the nut milks come in.
Right. Yeah, those aseptic packaging. It lasts for a long time.
So for the sweating, you add some of the broth to the
yeah,
veggies?
you just splash it in a hot pan, splash in the broth, and cover the pan tightly and turn off the heat. That's it. Because the problem with steaming and boiling and fishing the vegetables out is that so much of the energy of the food is in the water you're throwing away. And so you want to retain it. You want as much nutrient density as possible. And one of the pieces of advice we have is that you don't drink water when you eat, that you retain as much of the energy as possible, that you're diluting the nutrients. So that's one of the cheats. Another cheat is to, treat olive oil as a condiment, and just put a couple drops in something just for flavor. Olive oil has amazing properties, but I would also say I got this at Bed Bath & Beyond, and it is a California olive oil, and I would not get international olive oils. They are not reliable. So
I just want to mention on this recipe for the couscous salad, there's 2 scallions listed as one of the ingredients. And we actually asked the chefs. We worked quite a bit with the catering company. I'd like to thank Zahava and Anat for working with us to really vet these so that they were neuroendocrine friendly. So they actually sautéed the scallions as well, because we said, well, anything raw is not good for this group. So they cooked all of the veggies, and then some olive oil. I think we also talked about having the vegetables cut very small. So you'll see in the couscous salad, they're cut very, very small and evenly. Mm-hmm. That's an important thing, right? So that everything cooks more evenly?
Yeah. And you know, a lot of this involves knife skills, but you know, there is a kitchen in here that we can do some demonstrations in, but it wouldn't work for this many people. So we're not going to demonstrate, but you can see on YouTube there are all these instructions about how to do good knife skills. So I recommend, you know, that probably the best tools for recovering are 2 cutting boards and a sharp knife. You know, because you want a cutting board which is just for savory, and you want a cutting board which is just for fruit, and if you're working with meat, maybe even a 3rd cutting board. And cutting boards, by the way, should be wood.
Not the Bed Bath Beyond plastic one.
The problem with the plastic one is that the cuts don't close. Wood cuts close. That was one thing we found in school, was that it seems like, you know, a plastic cutting board that you would throw into a commercial dishwasher would be safer, but actually wood, and then after you use it, rubbing it with lemon peel is more antiseptic.
You mentioned also modifying recipes when you read them.
Always.
And I just wanted to note that this recipe for the couscous has black pepper. Now, I know there's one neuroendocrine patient who absolutely cannot eat pepper, so that might be something you just leave out. So it's really customizing it for you with some guidance to know what's going to work and what's not going to work. I mean, maybe the shallot in the vinaigrette is something that doesn't work for you, so then leave it out.
Or heat it up a little so it loses all its sharpness.
Mm-hmm. Shall we look at one of the other recipes?
Sure.
How about
So another cheat is this thing called Omnivore Salt, which is a really, really great way to make food taste great. And if you do not have a problem with pepper, the lovely people who make this stuff in San Francisco were very excited about me being here, so they gave me some extra samples for it. So those are for you guys to take with you. It's so easy to make things taste good with it. So, and I'm trying to, my whole thrust is to have pleasure come from food. 'Cause I think my experience or my observation is that pleasure is not cancer's friend. You know, cancer really, really loves stress. It loves darkness, and the more happy you are, and the more peaceful you are, the more calm you are, the more relaxed you are, the easier it is for your body to recover. And you know, it's one of these differences between brain tumors and carcinoid nets is that you guys have one procedure and treatment after another, and every time you have a procedure, you know, your body has to deal with it, and you have to recover slowly and be patient with yourself and get. But you know, the entire premise of my qigong practice is, you know, Chinese medicine, that the body wants to be well, and if you can be calm and being in good, you know, outside whenever you can, you know, move as much as you can in a relaxed way, and to be in a community of people who know you and see you and hear you, and be supported, and then and to be kind to yourself. I mean, you know, it's really sort of a mystery why people are so much less kind to themselves than they are to other people. But there's so much of this process which is about self-forgiveness, and just people think they're not entitled to be nice to themselves, but actually, they are entitled, and and people who depend on them need them to take care of themselves. And so...
Well, and this is one of the primary ways we take care of ourselves, by feeding ourselves well.
It's true.
And since this is, you mentioned joy, and it's true for a lot of people, food becomes a negative because of the side effects from eating. So
from the live stream, someone asked if you can hold up the products again and repeat them, because they want to write it down and buy them.
Oh, the products.
Oh, the products.
Oh, the Omnivore Salt.
Yeah.
Okay, live stream person.
Omnivore Salt is a
Omnivore
company
Salt.
in San Francisco.
Company in San Francisco, and Michael Pollan, who never does Omnivore.
Here, we'll give you one of these.
Yeah. If you're in the room, you're lucky. So Alice Waters, the great chef in Berkeley, who I know, says the salt is so indispensable. I bring a bag wherever I go. And Michael Pollan, who never does endorsements, he says, this guy has been one of my most influential teachers in the kitchen as well as in the fields and woods. Omnivore Salt improves whatever it touches. And then Werner Herzog has a recommendation, but no idea why. Oh, and the
olive oil.
The other, it was from the California Olive Ranch, and this is the Arbequina.
But you were saying any California olive oil.
Yeah. I mean, because if I lived in Europe, I would probably have a relationship with an ethical farmer, but it's gotten out of control because the incentive to cheat with olive oil, calling everything extra virgin, they can charge so much more that you just
Take
can't trust them.
advantage of that.
Right. It's
Well,
like you can't trust organic from other countries.
Shall we look at the Israeli chicken recipe?
Sure.
So maybe you can help people understand when they're going to buy chicken for this recipe, about sourcing their chicken. And again, remember that some people may be able to go to a farmer's market, some people may not.
Yeah, there are not many meat sellers at farmers markets, but you can get stuff. If you live on the west side, you can go to the Co-Opportunity in Santa Monica, or you can go to a Whole Foods, and you can order it, and get it with. And I think what you need to have is you have to have it without the skin, because the skin is very fatty, and people have a reaction to the fat. And what you're looking for is hormone-free, free range, and then the rest of it, the orange juice, and then the mustard, and it says orange marmalade or apricot jam and brandy. It says 2 tablespoons orange marmalade. You could use, cut that back, and you can also cut back the brandy, or not use brandy, use stock again. That would be a fine substitute. And
so one of the questions about the brandy was that it's alcohol.
It's alcohol and sugar.
This cooks for about an hour, so
there's no alcohol.
so the alcohol
component.
is all burns off, if that's a
Yeah,
concern.
it just makes it delicious. Let's be honest. So cooking with wine is, and there's a lot to be said for having pleasure from what you eat. It's very helpful, actually, on a deep level.
And so we want to emphasize that, it's okay to modify these. If mustard doesn't work for you, then leave it out or cut back on it maybe. Feel free to adjust the measurements a bit. What about one of the other recipes?
There is only one more recipe. It's the hummus.
So my first thought on this is for dried garbanzo beans. What if I find the canned garbanzo beans?
Yeah, if you have canned garbanzo beans, rinse them. Put them in. You rinse off the water that they've been sitting in. But one of the points about using dried beans, and this actually speaks to Leanne Brown's book, is that if there are financial issues, because this food's more expensive, you can make your own. You can. This is a book that was a master's thesis at NYU, and she has given it away on PDFs to like 100,000 people, and it's about how to eat well and healthily on a food stamp budget. So it's a huge great thing for people if there are financial issues. And so
some people might see cumin and say, "Oh, that's spicy. I can't have that."
Cumin is actually not spicy, but you might not be able to have it because you have all sorts of. It has an interesting flavor, which is why we use it, and it is part of the Israeli vocabulary, flavor vocabulary.
But it's not as hot spicy.
It's not hot spicy, and so yeah, and did you like the hummus?
Yes.
Oh yeah, I introduced these women to Giovanna, and I brought that pan because it has the tight-fitting lid, and it's stainless steel, which we prefer. We don't want to have thin pans which heat unevenly, or Teflon pans because of the Teflon. It gets detached. It's very toxic in your bodies, and then this thing is such a crude little item, and it's a food mill, and you can make your own applesauce very easily with this, and that way you know everything that's in it, and if you have big fiber issues, you can peel the apples, or I just cut them up and you put them in a pan with a little water, and they will soften in about 20 minutes, and then you put them through the food mill. And if you can handle cinnamon has all sorts of health benefits. But even without cinnamon, and it makes the house smell amazing. We call it German aromatherapy in our house. And so...
We also said we might talk about quinoa. A lot of people have heard about it, but may not have cooked it at home.
Yeah, and actually you can. Actually, the way I make quinoa is I sort of put it in a pan, maybe a smaller pan than that, also with a tight-fitting lid, and I sort of heat the kernels up a little bit in a dry pan.
Toast them first.
Kind of toast the quinoa, and then pour water in, cold water in, and enough to cover maybe a little more, and then turn the heat as low as it goes, tightly cover it, and check it in 10 minutes. It should be fine.
And quinoa is an amazing food because it's a grain, but it's also a complete protein.
Right.
So even if you're not eating meat, quinoa is a source of all proteins.
And
comes in different colors, and there's rainbow quinoa. It cooks really fast, and you can mix, like we probably could have done this couscous recipe with a quinoa.
Couscous is wheat, but quinoa is its own plant related to chard, and it's a Bolivian staple. And then also you can add this magic stock to it, and so.
Now, eggs were mentioned so many times. What are some, if we're eating a lot of eggs, if that's kind of our breakfast, what are some ways to make that interesting? Or different flavors or herbs?
Yes, herbs for sure. I mean, I don't know, how are you guys with cheese?
I think we vary, but how's cheese?
And some cheese are,
Cheese
Well-
okay?
but I would say with cheese,
Sugar food, that's what they said online.
Cheese, especially the anything aged or fermented, like
Yeah.
blue cheese.
well, one of the things to think about with cheese is to maybe buy it from get European cheese, because they're not really permitted to use hormone milk. And although you can get cheeses here which are, small dairies, and they really care about it. They're making some beautiful cheeses, and goat milk is generally healthier because goats are grown in small herds, and if you have huge herds, like these feedlots where there are 10,000, 20,000 animals, they have to give them antibiotics and they have to give them hormones.
Is there any food value to shrimp?
Is there any food value to shrimp?
Yeah, I haven't been able to figure out.
Well,
I
it's
like it.
it's delicious, yeah, and it's fatty and it's protein, and it is not. It's hard to source good shrimp, but I wouldn't worry about it. If you like it, if it gives you pleasure, that outweighs.
The honey shrimp with walnuts.
Shrimp with walnuts? Honey shrimp with walnuts.
Chinese restaurant.
Right.
We have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
We have a question from the live stream. Peanut butter or almond butter?
Well, peanut butter is not. Peanuts aren't nuts. They're legumes, and they grow in the ground. And so if you're going to eat peanut butter, it should be roasted, because the aflatoxins in raw peanut butter are potentially really toxic. So I love almond butter, and it's also really fatty, so that works for me. And one of the reasons it works for me is that my issues are brain issues, and the brain is pure fat, and so I am good with fat. You, on the other hand,
So for us, since we maybe have issues with fat, maybe a small amount of almond butter.
Yeah.
Just in.
and there's something
Modest.
else I would say, which is comes from Dr. Reed here in town, which is that there's about 10 minutes between when you eat something and when you feel it. And if you are interested in trying a new food, eat a small amount of it, and then, as he says, wait a little while and then visit the troops. Go down there and see how it's doing for you. And if it works for you, work it into your diet. But eat things, have a real diverse, as diverse as possible. I know that some of the recommendations are to eat a bland white diet, and if that's what you need, do it. But do organic bland if you can. And so we always just want to get the best ingredients we can, from people who grow it with great conviction and passion. And being a farmer is hard work. It's a lot of it takes a lot of skill, and to do it right. It's a little more mindless to use pesticides, but and these people are worth supporting. If you can't get to it, just do the best you can. And when your schedule opens up, start voting for that kind of food system.
We also talked about how you can freeze things. So
Yes.
let's say you're having a really good day, and gut's feeling good that day. You say, I'm going to go shop and I'm going to cook today. And then freezing things, especially in portion sizes, so that you can just pull something out of the freezer. Maybe it's a soup or a broth, and have that ready on the days when you really don't want to go out of the house.
I brought you a frozen soup the other day.
Yes, and it was delicious, lentil soup.
That's where I found out you had terrible knives.
You
We
did
took care of
that.
it. Enough of the knives.
So do we have any questions from the audience here? Yes.
One ingredient wasn't referenced and has been used in a number of food items is soy or soybean. Any
So the question is, just for our viewers outside on the live stream, is there's a lot of that's been said about soy. Is that a good ingredient or not?
Yeah, I get soy. I get soy milk, and I use the West Spray soy milk, the unsweetened plain, and it has an ingredient list that you have to love. It says organic soybeans, filtered water. That's it. You know, I love Michael Pollan's thing, which is that you never eat anything that has more than 5 ingredients, and don't eat anything that has an ingredient that wouldn't plausibly be in your pantry. You know, if it involves chemicals and high fructose corn, who has high fructose corn syrup? You know, so yeah, soy. So you can get good soy. Most of the soy in this country, like 90% of it, is big agriculture, and it's subsidized, and it's grown with pesticides and GMOs, and so.
Even the bean is kind of not in the form of the bean, just soybean.
I think this whole soybean, if you can source them, edamame, it's great. Yeah.
It's something to look for organic, because that and corn are the two things that are most likely to be GMO or not organic.
Right.
Questions?
There's a question for online. What's your favorite type of yogurt to eat? What's your best suggestion?
I get goat yogurt. I like goat yogurt. Redwood Farms, they're nice people. And I love about goats that they're small herds. You know, so they're healthy. You know, if you're eating animals that weren't healthy, eating stuff from animals that are not healthy, then that's not good for you either. Yeah. So
can I go back to the eggs for a moment, because we got sidetracked on cheese. We were talking about just different things to.
yeah.
So when we say
with
herbs,
vegetables and
for some people, which herbs specifically?
well, parsley is really very easy. It's very good for you. It's also really easy to grow. So if you can go out to your garden and just pick some, you know, it's really powerful, you know, to have that kind of control and connection to what you're eating. And some people, I don't use these sprays for pans, you know, this like oil sprays, but that may be a way to saute eggs. And I happen to like eggs very, very lightly done, and it's kind of European to have them soft, and chop in some parsley, stir in some vegetables, you know, just really fresh, and you know, so that works for me, and I also happen to like grilled vegetables a lot. And some people have a problem with cooking smells. So it's actually very handy to have an outside grill. And like we do whenever we have fish, we do it outside. So it's not, the smells aren't in the house. And so.
Maybe we can talk a little bit more about some resources. So let's say a person they're really, either they've just had surgery or they're just having a lot of carcinoid syndrome, so they can't get out to shop. So we mentioned that there's delivery services that can bring food in.
There's something called Instacart here in LA. I don't know how wide it is.
And now that Amazon owns Whole Foods, there's Amazon Fresh.
Amazon Fresh, so you can get they make it really, really easy. I use a place called the Vitacost that sells brown rice and all sorts of products, quinoa. You can get tapioca and coconut milk or whatever. And if you order $50, which isn't that hard, the shipping is free. And if you order it today, it comes tomorrow. So it's almost as convenient as going to the store yourself.
So those are some good resources, if we're not able to get out to shop. And then if we are able to get out to shop, so we'll go the full spectrum, then there's the markets. And like you said, locally in Santa Monica, actually in Culver City and Santa Monica, there's a co-op. And then the other extreme would be going to 5 farmers markets, and as you do, and really having relationships with the farmers and being able to talk with who's sourcing our food directly.
And it's the good ones are complete passionate about what they do, and they can tell when you're interested in them, and interested in their process. And and like I say, they were so excited that I was coming here that they just handed me all this stuff, and which was really nice. And I don't ask them to do that. I never begrudge a farmer. It bugs me that when people try to haggle with them, and it's like these guys are taking this huge risk, and they are. Because the expression "betting the farm," it actually comes from someplace, which is that they have crop failures, and this year, the Gloria who grows strawberries, her strawberries just stopped, like a month into the season, and they just lost the crop. So.
You mentioned something else that I think is really important about reading ingredients. And they could make your shopping trip a lot longer if you stop and actually start reading the ingredients. So I was looking for some cookies that we could have today, and I started reading all the ingredient lists. I stood there for about a half an hour reading all the ingredients, and every single one had sugar in them, and sometimes quite a bit of sugar. So we were trying to find a dessert, something that could work as a dessert. And we have a beautiful vegan carrot cake, but even with that baker, we asked them to modify it for neuroendocrine, so for any cancer patient, we wanted them to not use regular sugar. And so they used a coconut syrup, is that right? Coconut. I think it was a coconut sugar instead, which is still sugar, but maybe a different glycemic value.
Yeah,
so
I think
it's
that's
not going to, hit your system in the same way that other sugar might.
And the reason there's so much sugar in everything is because it extends the shelf life. This stuff is fading as we're talking. So I'm looking at it getting less fresh as we sit here. So there's good reasons why companies do this, but they're extending a shelf life is a way to be profitable. It's not about they're not organized around a health principle. They're organized around a business concept. But the truth of the matter is that people express love by cooking, and sometimes you have to find a way to say, that doesn't work for me. And I'm not very good at this. I usually just eat it and then regret it. and I'm up at 3 a.m. and.
Yeah. Well, if you say I can't eat sugar, that kind of helps.
I don't know. It's just hard because people's feelings get hurt, and sometimes it's worth it to me to have severe neurological damage rather than hurt someone's feelings.
Well,
but
maybe if we think about it like an alcoholic just can't take, if you offer them wine, they can't drink it. Some of us are diabetic as a result of our medications, so we can't eat sugar. So that's a medical reason. It's not maybe a polite way to say no.
Yeah, right. Okay.
But that's a good point, because especially this time of year,
It's coming up.
It's coming up, and there's going to be a lot of places and times. We have a question here.
Oh, I have a suggestion about that. Like, you can, if you want to accept it, you can just, when it's sitting around for a little while, you can just say, I'm a little full and I'd like to wrap it up for later.
Oh, you are so smart. Oh, Lisa. Oh, God.
And another question here.
When you start showing up at dinner parties with your own Tupperware.
Oh, that's turmeric. I'm cooking everything with the quinoa, brown rice.
People swear by turmeric. I cannot do it because I have to avoid things that thin my blood. So I can't do fish oil or turmeric or vitamin E or anything that thins blood. I can't do, ibuprofen or aspirin. It's just a side effect of what I'm living with. I still have some side effects from treatment, and one of them is prone to bleeding and bleeding on the craniotomy site. And but
So if we don't have those particular concerns,
Oh, it's
turmeric
fantastic.
is a really good anti-inflammatory.
It is, and so much of the data from this comes from populations that eat a ton of turmeric. I mean, in India, they eat so much turmeric that, where they do autopsies and the brains are yellow. Yeah, and it seems to have some really amazing therapeutic effects. And I wish I could do it because I love those kinds of foods. But I can do it occasionally, so, and it's so tempting to find something and just stick with it. Say, I like this. I like it. I'm just going to eat it every day. It's probably not the greatest thing to do because bodies like diversity. They really do. It's as important for your body as it is for your financial portfolio. Putting all your money in high yield, stocks is stupid. That's the word I was looking for. It's stupid. And it's just balanced, and the whole practice of what we do with movement is about balance and about being, really right in the middle of always finding just what's right for you. Because every moment we have this sort of opportunity. Are we going to support ourselves being healthy, or are we going to undermine ourselves? And a lot of times our awareness isn't to a place where we can feel that we're undermining ourselves. But after a while, you begin to say, "Oh yeah, I got angry at that person, and it didn't help." The person was fine, and I felt flushed with stress hormones, and I felt like it made me sick, but.
That's literally something that is one of those triggers for carcinoid syndrome, of just extreme emotions, being very emotional, or especially in a negative sense of anger, which causes stress, which then can trigger some of those symptoms. I want to ask you about, we talked about, being out in holiday parties. Any advice you can give us on restaurants? Like if we're in a restaurant, how do we decipher the menu in a way that we can try to eat more safely, something that's going to work for our bodies?
Well, one thing I would say about this, and that comes up a lot, and you might not want to do my solution, which is never eat in a restaurant. And it's probably because I used to cook in restaurants. And go to the restaurant not hungry. And at a dinner party where there's going to be foods which are going to bug you, bring some food. Bring a dish that works for you.
Something you know you can
Something
eat.
you know you can eat, and then people generally don't really focus on the fact that you're only eating your food. But I have
So with Thanksgiving coming up, that's a good piece of advice. Bring something you know you can eat.
Right. Bring the roasted root vegetables or something like that, and roast them with lemon and sprigs of thyme or something like that, and a little Omnivore Salt, and people will think it's great, and then you're the only one eating it. So,
So the restaurants, the
restaurant
really
thing.
tricky.
Well, for me, the great thing about the way I think about restaurant food is that even a bad meal in a restaurant is $20 a person. And $20 a person is a great budget to have to go shopping for yourself and to get really, really spectacular ingredients. And but mainly I would say don't go starving. Because if you're starving, you'll lurch towards the macaroni and cheese, and restaurants buy bad ingredients. They get cheap oil, and also a lot of them make food that is just so processed. I think I was talking to you yesterday that McDonald's has 15 ingredients in their French fries, and in America, in Britain, the McDonald's French fries have 5 ingredients. But why 5 ingredients? What's in French fries? It's potatoes and salt and oil. That's it. Where'd the 4th one come in? Where'd the 5th one? Where'd the next 8 come in? And I mean, it's just food engineers, chemists doing this, to trigger our pleasure centers, and it's to create desires. It's not to create health. In fact, health is not enter their framework at all.
So in a restaurant, since so many of us, these are our social connections. I mean, especially if we haven't been feeling well and then we want to visit with friends and go out and share a meal. Is it maybe a suggestion to order something that can be just roasted, like a roasted piece of fish, not with sauce?
Sure.
We're minimizing the ingredients, or sauce on the side.
Well, you happen to live in a neighborhood where they have restaurants that refuse to do substitutions, and famously, Brad Pitt couldn't get a substitution on a dish. No substitution. But so you go to a restaurant, and I mean, even Chinese restaurants, you can get the fish that's floating in the tank, and they'll cook it and bring it to you. But you can do steamed fish, and just pull off all the scallions and that's a fine way to go, and get the simplest rice they have, and.
So that's a way to maybe avoid more processed foods.
Yeah.
Just go with whole ingredients. I mean, sometimes like ordering eggs, we don't know if they're organic, but at least it comes from a whole egg.
Right. And you might want to think about bringing your own salt, or bringing your own sort of condiments for it, because a lot of Chinese restaurants will have really industrial olive oils or soy sauces and industrial oils, so steaming is better than the frying, and but the social part of eating is a huge part of it. One of the reasons they say that the French are so much healthier with their terrible diet is that they spend 4 hours eating. So it's a way that they're deeply connecting with their friends, and so it's about supporting your spirit.
We talked about how great some of these salts are. Tell us what's not so great about the white table salt that we usually see.
Well, it's just a chemical, it's and it has nothing in it, and it's sodium chloride, but historically salts came from evaporating seawater, and all these regions had salt mines that had inherent nutrients in them and flavors, and there's black Icelandic salts and red Hawaiian salts and French gray salts, and pink Himalayan salt, and they all have sort of their own flavor, and that video we watched, that Korean monk, the nun, I mean, she had these 20-year-old soy sauces that were just, they were like, fine wines. I mean, there's a whole world out there, and
That's something we'll share the link to. It's actually on Netflix. It's Chef's Table, and there's one episode in particular about a Korean monk who is really exceptional. Well, I think we're close to our time, but are there any questions any questions from online as well, if you'd like to send some of those in?
Getting back to fruits and vegetables, is there a correct way to wash or rinse them?
if apples have been sprayed, you can't really wash the pesticide off. It can't be washed off. If it did, you did have to spray every time it rained, and they don't. So you just do the best you can. You get organic and rinse it off, and I'm a big believer in the salad spinner. Get things wet and then dry them off, and
Any soda mixture or anything?
yeah, I know there are veggie wash products,
Veggie wash
right?
products.
And I don't really see a need for it because I'm just washing stuff in my tap water. We have the house on a filter, so we have things. It's pretty clean water, and but there's all this evidence that our lives have gotten too clean, and that there's this thing called the microbiome, and we have not treated it well, because all this Formula 409, all this antimicrobial products. I mean, it's some of these microbes that they're killing are healthy for us. They help us live, and they help us be healthy. I mean, did any of us know people when we were growing up who were so allergic to peanuts that we had to have EpiPens and parents had to be terrified? That doesn't make any sense from a human genetic standpoint. But 30 years is 750,000 generations of microbes. And with antibiotics and these microbial stuff, we've had species of microbes go extinct, and they had some kind of role. And the microbiome is a very, very complicated, unfathomably complex subject. So you can't really figure it out, but you can sort of gently align your interests, with things that are alive and life. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
In a really non-linear way?
And just in a non-linear way, that reminded me of taking digestive enzymes. So,
Oh, you guys have the Creon,
many
right?
of us take either Creon or pancrease, which for some people is a really necessary just chemical balance in our digestive system because we're not producing those enzymes naturally. So are there many people here who take? Yeah, almost everybody. And do you find that they work, taking 1 or 2 with meals?
They raise your glucose levels also.
They raise your glucose level.
Pancreas, Creon will raise your glucose.
So
Interesting.
sort of our message today is it's all balance, You had a
Visit the
question?
troops.
My question is, when I cook and I make soup, I'm sometimes confused at how long should certain vegetables cook? Because I think when they cook too long, I lose the strength of the vitamin. So how long and how do you cook vegetables? Like certain vegetable would take 5 minutes, and certain vegetable would take 15 minutes. So I'm just asking for your advice on that.
I would say it's a really interesting point, and you don't want to overcook because there's, the beauty of this sweating thing, where you basically are putting the vegetables in, splashing something so steam comes up, covering it tightly and turning it off, is that it still has any cooking robs you of some nutrients. But you can retain as much as possible. Retain the energy in the food by not overcooking. So in a soup, you put the vegetables in sequentially, but people love their crock pots and this instant pot, and my neighbor got an instant pot. It's amazing, and pressure cooker. I love a pressure cooker, which is, it's not the technology I grew up with, but they have new technology pressure cookers that are great. They don't explode anymore. What?
You can make it soup at
Yeah.
a pressure cooker?
Yeah. And there's a wonderful author named Lorna Sass who's written, he calls it Cooking Under Pressure. Lorna Sass. And she's fantastic. But pressure cookers, if you don't know them, are
Dangerous.
no, they're not dangerous. They're not anymore, but they are, the water can only go to 212 degrees, but under pressure, it goes up to like 250, so things cook very fast. So, and I got one because I was visiting a friend, and he made a risotto in a pressure cooker, and then he made another one. He made like 2 in like 20 minutes. And so risottos are fun.
So with the veggies, is that also a question of how you're chopping them and how long they're going to take to cook?
Yeah, if you're doing something like a stir fry, but when you're making a soup, it doesn't really matter that much. But I'd like the idea of cooking things lightly and not. Although there's braising, is something that takes hours, and there's things transform, and sometimes you're giving up some nutrients for deliciousness, and because those slow cooked foods are just really fantastic.
How about making shake for breakfast? Is it nutrition-oriented, very high speed?
Yeah, well, I used to have a smoothie in the morning, and I had it with whey protein, goat whey, and I had it with soy milk, and I had it with like chia and fruit, and it just got to feel too sweet to me. And so I stopped doing it. It just didn't feel right after a while. So I shifted. But it's fine. You should eat it quickly, though, because once you chop something up, it fades very quickly. So.
And how long we can keep the vegetable that in the refrigerator, that doesn't go away?
The raw?
Yeah.
If you buy something at the farmer's market, it was probably picked the day before, and you get a week out of that. If you buy something at Ralph's, it was probably picked 3 weeks before. So it's already the nutrient curve is dropping as you go on. So the best is to go out to the garden, pull it out of the ground, and then the next best is to get it from a farmer who takes care of you, who you have a relationship with.
On those smoothies, I found that that's something that works some days, and other days, I don't know, having all that liquid first thing in the morning is not a good thing. So I think it also varies on our bodies, what's going on.
Oh, yeah, they say that science is the incremental acquisition of understanding through observation. And so we need to, we don't own this stuff. We just are experimenting, and we do something, we experiment, and we observe the result, and we make modifications. We revise constantly. And if you make a mistake, just forgive yourself, because we all make mistakes. It's a messy process.
And the observation is really important, because for some of us, we may be having malabsorption, where we're eating the food, but we're just not absorbing the nutrients. So some people actually get a B12 injection every month because they no longer have that part of their digestive system to absorb certain nutrients.
Right.
Question, in the sweating process that you suggested, do you also use the liquid afterwards?
Yeah.
Making soup and others?
Or I mean, it's very little, so I,
Oh.
you know, like I just use it, just eat it, you know.
Oh,
So,
okay.
right.
Thanks.
Well, thank you, Michael, so much. This has been great, and I hope we can do another something with you, whether it's a shopping trip so you can teach us how to read ingredients and shop. Is that something people would be interested in? Yeah,
And they have this display kitchen. We can have.
and we could actually cook. Yes.
Okay, we could actually cook.
Yeah.
Also, the recipes will be shared online on Facebook and our newsletter. The recipes that
So we'll be sharing the recipes, and we also have some other recipes that you're welcome to take a copy of outside on the table. We'll be sharing those online as well. And there's a sign up. There's a new cookbook coming out in the next few weeks for neuroendocrine patients, done by Lexicon Pharmaceuticals. So that's something we hope to have at the December 12th meeting. So thank you all for joining us in person. For those of you on the live stream, I hope you'll cook the
Bye-bye.
delicious recipes. And thank you for joining us. Thank you to Tower. And I want to thank Lindsay Judevine as our events coordinator for helping so much. And Michael Sieverts for being our guest today.
Thank you,
Great.
Joanna.
you.